Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to the Turbo 360 tutorial series. In this tutorial, we're going to create a simple audio streaming app, kind of like SoundCloud, not nearly as robust as SoundCloud, but a similar thought process where you can create an account, upload some audio files, stream those files from different pages and whatnot. It's not going to have all the features of SoundCloud, so we're not going to be able to follow different artists and things like that, but just the basics so you can get your head around creating a more sophisticated CRUD application than the simple stuff we've been building before. So that's it. Let's get into it and let's get started. So turn on your terminal. And a couple people have been mentioning problems with their versioning, so let's make sure we have the right version. So I'm running Node version 6.10. So make sure you have at least that. If you don't, it's pretty easy. Just go to nodejs.org and make sure you have the LTS version. So I'm actually a little bit behind, but it should be okay. Make sure you have Gulp installed globally. So go ahead and do that. And then also make sure you have Webpack installed. Let me do this again because I messed it up. So sudo npm i-gulp. And you may not need to do this. I already have Gulp installed globally, but I'm just showing beginners what they're going to need to run this tutorial. And then make sure you have sudo npm i-g webpack. We're going to use these tools. And then last but not least, make sure you have the Turbo CLI installed. We're going to use Turbo to persist our data and upload files and do all that stuff. So make sure you have that as well. So this will be the last install, and then we should be ready to get started. Now, while this is installing, we're going to use a theme, which obviously you don't have right now. So if you go to the tutorial page on Turbo 360, turbo360.co, you will see this tutorial on the website, and the theme will be downloadable from that tutorial page. The reason I'm not doing it right now in this video is because that page doesn't exist yet as of the making of this video, but by the time you're watching this, it'll be up. So you can download the theme from that page on the turbo360.co website. So I'll just show you the actual website. So here's the website that I'm referring to. I should go to the SSL version. If you click on tutorials, pretty soon this tutorial that you're watching right now will be on this page, and then you click on it, and then you should be able to download the theme that I'm going to use for this tutorial. And you should be ready to go. So once you have all your tools installed, CD to your desktop, and let's create the Turbo project. So audio stream is what we're going to call it. And then CD into the directory and run the npm install. We are now installing dependencies that this project will use locally. And while that's going, this is a good time to go ahead and create the project on our Turbo account as well. So go to turbo360.co and log in if you have an account, or sign up down here. It's free. If you don't have an account, I'm going to go ahead and log in. And once you're over here, create an application. I'm going to call it Audio Stream, and we don't need a description. I'm going to go lowercase on this, and I will put a description: Audio Stream Tutorial. Okay, make sure you copy the app ID because we're going to need that right now. And this is now done installing the packages, so do turbo app, paste in the ID, and then run the dev server, the local dev server, and go to localhost 3000, and make sure you see this. This means everything worked. We are ready to start developing and start installing some themes and images and all that good stuff. So we're good to go. So first thing we want to do is install the theme. So here, if we open up the audio stream directory structure, here's the scaffolded project from the Turbo scaffold, which is also basically a standard directory structure. This is pretty conventional. So we're going to put the theme inside the assets directory so that we have access to it at all times. So let's go ahead and do that right now. So if you have the theme downloaded from the website, make sure you unzip it, and it should be a theme folder, and then toss that inside the assets directory. Double click on that and then scroll to the index.html, and then go to where it says shop, and then click on the product list. Nope, wrong one. Click on the single product. I'm looking at the wrong one. The cart overview. There we go. We're going to use this page, the shop-cart HTML, as our home page template. The reason I'm selecting this page is because this column will represent stations on the service. So station 1, station 2, station 3, and users will be able to click on a station and then navigate to the station page to play the tracks. So much like SoundCloud, you can click a station or a page, click on that, and then play all the tracks. Over here will be a sign up box, so you can just sign up right away. So we're gonna do some user management in this project. So that's why I'm showing this page right here. So let's go to that page right now inside the theme. So open up your project in Sublime, go to the theme, and then go to the shop-cart HTML. And here is the HTML of the template page we're looking at. Highlight the entire thing. Go over to index.html, remove all the initial contents, paste in the shop-cart contents, and then let's configure this page with the Turbo directory. So now we have all the HTML we need. However, we need to configure the directory to reference the assets. So if you look at the HTML, it says assets /css/core, whatever. But these directories don't exist inside of our current assets directory. Same as these JS files. I'll make this bigger so it's easier to read. So what we need to do is go to the actual theme in here, which has its own assets directory. Let's duplicate that, move it out here, and then let's open up the assets directory. It's almost a perfect one-to-one directory structure. So again, this is what I meant by Turbo follows conventions, best practice conventions as much as possible. So let's take the assets from the theme, the CSS, and move that over. Let's move the fonts over. Let's change the name of this directory to images and move that over. Let's grab the JS. Now I'm going to open up the JS file here and then move all of these over like so. The main reason being is that I don't want to lose the other ones that are already in there from the Turbo scaffold. Okay, great. So now we're done moving the assets over from the theme into our Turbo directory. So now these assets correspond with the theme's assets. And now we can go back to our terminal and run the dev server. And we should see something close to this page when we run localhost 3000. Good. It's almost an exact match because if you recall, we changed the img directory to images. So we need to make the corresponding update inside the HTML itself. So you see where it says img? We want to get rid of that and replace it with images. So this is pretty quick. We just do a Command Option F and then do /img like that and replace it with images so that it corresponds to our current directory structure. So now that we've done that, we should see these missing images, 1, 2, 3, as well as the background, should be now taken care of. So now we have a perfect transition, a perfect transfer from the theme page over to our localhost. So now the next thing we want to do, actually right now is a good time to check your console and make sure we're not missing any assets. So our console is clean, everything was cleanly transferred. This was a successful transfer of assets. So now let's go ahead and do some optimization. So now Turbo gives us a pre-configured gulp file whereby we can bundle our assets into a minimized and optimized package, which is what we should do. So right now the assets have, the theme has 3 CSS style sheets that we want to bundle into one. So what we want to do is go over to our gulp file.js and find the CSS task, which is responsible for bundling our CSS files into one minified concatenated export. So I pasted these in from the theme itself. There's 3 imports, 1, 2, 3. So we do 1, 2, 3, and then we just copy these over. I'm just going to type this one. Okay, so now what's going to happen is, well actually there's a slight distinction here I want to show you. There, here it says assets CSS and there is a the sas.min.css, which is right here, but they also give you an unminified version over here. I'm actually going to use the unminified version because we're minifying it anyway inside this build script. So task, excuse me. So it's going to get minified no matter what. So the reason I did that was if we need to go in here and make changes, I can do so inside this file rather than this much more confusing, very hard to read file. Editing this is no fun. Editing this is much easier. So we may or may not do that, but it gives us a good clean way of doing so. So now our CSS task is ready to go. I'm going to remove these CSS files and run the dev server. And it should look terrible because we just removed the CSS. So now, as you can see, it looks terrible. So what we're going to do now is run the build script. So we're compiling the CSS according to the gulp task that we just rewrote, and then we're going to reference the distribution, the production build. This is done. So now we're going to use the dist directory for the CSS. This file right here was just created. So we want to do dist css and then style.min.css. And then that should, I'm just going to make a slight adjustment here. That should now restore our style sheets. So when we go back to the dev server, everything is back in business. It looks good. Actually, these were lost, so we'll fix that in a second. But the important thing to take note of is that we are now using the dist file of the CSS, the compiled CSS, rather than 3 individual CSS files. So this is considered more optimal, more efficient to code. So that's good. So now let's take care of these missing icons down here. If I do Option Command I to run the console and reload the page, you will see it's telling you what it's looking for. It's looking for a fonts directory in the dist folder that doesn't exist. So this fonts directory, if you open up the assets and the fonts directory, inside of our CSS build task, it wasn't carried over. We didn't write a task for that. So what we want to do is copy these fonts into this dist directory. That's what it's looking for. If you look closely, it says could not find dist/fonts. Of course you can't find it because it's not there. So we want to write a copy task. So luckily there's a copy task down here for copy images. We're going to write another one called copy fonts. Pretty simple. And then instead of the images directory, we copy the fonts directory into the dist fonts directory. Now we grab that copy fonts and we add it to the tasks down here, the global tasks, the total tasks, I guess you can put it. So now the fonts should be copied over. So if I go back to my terminal, turn off the server, and run the entire build again, you'll see the dist goes away. It gets recompiled, but now it's running copy fonts if you see closely. So when this is done in a couple seconds, it will show you the fonts directory right here. Perfect. So now we have it. So now if I go back and run the server again, this time those font icons now show up. So now we're 100% ready to go. This has been successfully optimized for CSS. However, if you go back to the index.js, you will see that the JavaScripts have not been concatenated minified. So let's go ahead and take care of that. So let's copy all three of these. Go back to our gulp file. And inside the JS task is where we define, optimize these. So there's 3 JavaScripts, and then there's the 2 from the original scaffold. That's why I left those behind, if you recall. Let's do 1, 2, 3. Let's copy those over. So core.min.js, the sass.min.js, and script.js. Let's get rid of those. Just like before, let's check the JS directory from the original assets. Just like before, they give you the sass min as well as an unminified version of the same thing. So same as before, we're going to use the unminified version because although it's not likely, we may go in here and make changes. It actually would be pretty unlikely, but it might happen. So if we want to do that, we want to at least go into the unminified version. And then keep in mind, all this is being minified anyway. So at the end of the day, it gets minified. So now let's go here. And if you look at the gulp file, it says it's going to distribute it to the dist/js directory under this name right here, vendor.min.js. So we want to reference that, dist.js and then vendor.min.js. So now this will be the concatenated/minified version of the JavaScripts that we're currently using. So let's run the build again. Whoop, got a mistake here. So broken import of a Google Fonts. So what we want to do is figure out where that font is being imported, which is right here. It's usually inside of a CSS. So let's grab that and let's get rid of it. Just remove it. And try running that build again. Okay, clean build. Now we don't actually want to lose that font though, so we're going to import it inside here, inside the actual index.html, so that we can still just use the font because the theme does rely on it. So here is the actual font URL. Now you can import Google Fonts as just regular style sheets. So that's a link. and then I believe you just paste it in the ref like that. So let me just make sure about that though. Google, because I might mess that up. Google font import. Yep, so here's an example of a Google font import. Let's make sure we're doing it the right way. And that looks good. Great. So now we have the Google font imported just inside the actual head tag. I'm just going to do some reorganization here. Okay, good. So now one last thing we're going to do is we don't want to reference the images here from the assets anymore, because those actually go in the dist directory as well. So the thing you have to remember here is that in a Turbo project, the assets actually do not get deployed, the dist directory does. So if we deploy this, these images actually won't show up on the production server, or the server, I should just say. So it's pretty simple. We just do a quick find and replace. So Command Option F, and then instead of assets, just have it say dist. I'm going to use a relative file path here, so I want to put a slash right there. Okay, that's not a huge deal. I'm just being careful. So here I'm just being thorough. Okay, so now one last time for good measure, I'm going to run the build. Okay, build is complete. I'm going to run the dev server and make sure everything is properly rendering on localhost, which it still is. Very good. Check the console, make sure there are no errors, everything looks good, and great. So now our theme has been successfully integrated, optimized, cleaned up. Everything is ready to go from a theme standpoint. And I'm going to deploy now. So copy the app ID from your Turbo dashboard. I think we did that already, but do it again just to be safe. So here is the app. Copy the app ID, and then just do Turbo app. And then that connects our local project to our Turbo project. And then just do Turbo deploy. And now we're currently deploying the project to a staging environment on Turbo, which is basically the same as production, just two different environments, so you can edit one without worrying about having it impact your actual users. Okay, so the deployment is done. Here is the staging URL, so let's copy and paste that. And here it is on the deployment staging server, and everything still looks good, everything looks accurate, no errors in the console. So we are now good to go. We are now prepared to start developing some of the actual business logic of the application. So if you got through all that, that was good. So now in the next part, in part 2, we're going to start configuring this for our project. So we're going to remove a lot of these menu options, change the name. I'm going to remove this header, this banner right here. In fact, I'm just going to do that right now because it'll take 2 seconds. So on the index.html, let's just get rid of that. That's the header. So that when you load the front page, it will immediately go down to here, like so. Let's just do it, because why not? Okay, so here, and we'll figure out that why it's not showing up early on over here, the nav bar. but when you load the page, these will be audio stations, and then this will be a sign up page, sign up form right here, and this button will say sign up, and that'll take you to an admin dashboard. And that's going to happen throughout the duration of the tutorial. In the next part, we're going to hook up some jQuery to do some front-end logic on the client side, and then hook up this registration form, and then start creating some stations. So stay tuned for that, and thanks for watching.